Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Ted, hanging out with
Nerdarchy Steve.
And today we have a viewer suggestion from Isaac. He's a fledgling DM for 5th edition, and he wants to have his players be more role players as opposed to role players. He's curious to know, does he seek out like-minded individuals to start a game, or does he seek out whoever he can get and train them to be in the role-playing style? And as players, what do we look for as role-playing cues, and what interests us as far as role-playing?
Down in the description below, you can find Nerdarchy, the newsletter, where you can get weekly gaming tips from us, as well as learn how to game with the Nerdarchy.
So, what, as far as the first question, does he take the more challenging road and seek out the people who are going to be more inclined to do the role playing, or does he grab what he can get and train them to be the kind of game he wants to run?
So that's kind of a loaded question, because there's a lot of varying factors here. It's like, well, where does he live? What does he have around him? How many options does he actually have? Or is he going to start a game online where you really can kind of find the cream of the crop?
Right.
Or is it just I'm going to grab a bunch of my friends and play the game? So it doesn't really sound like the latter. It sounds like he wants to look for them. But what he might find is it's a bit more difficult than that, depending on his area, how many games are going on, and the other thing I would think too might be more difficult if you're looking for people that are better at role playing and are more oriented towards role playing. There's a good possibility they're already in games.
That's true.
So will you be able to get them for another game?
Right.
So sometimes it really is a matter of just working with what you have, and then that does leave you with training your players to play the game you want to play, which there's nothing wrong with that too. ROLL players, a lot of times they don't know any different. That's just how they played the game. That's how they were taught. It's what they're used to. So. It may not even be that they don't want to role play. They just don't understand that that's an option. To them, this is kind of like a really complicated board game, minus the board, and maybe they play it that way.
Right.
So so these are all considerations. But obviously, the easiest thing is just finding the group that already gels with you. It's just that it's not always an option for everybody.
So if you can seek out the people that are already interested in the actual thespian angle, the role-playing stuff, as opposed to dice chucking, then that's preferred. But as if Dave says, if you're not spoiled for choice, if you are spoiled for choice, then you might just have to go with what you have and try to say, look, this is the game I'm interested in running, so I want you to be more into the actual conversation and exploration.
And if you can get a mix of those people, there's a good possibility that one side will come over to the other.
Right.
Hopefully, it just doesn't go the opposite way that you want. Now they're all ROLL players, and half of them were role players, but they've seen the light, but the wrong light.
Now, for the second side of that question of what do you look for as a player, you look to the DM, and the DM, they are the focal point for all the players. They're going to be the ones that I don't want to use the word dictate, but they're the ones that guide what's going on. So if you present an NPC and the first thing he does is pull out a weapon as opposed to saying something, then that's going to guide the players in the vein of, okay, well, this is combat. I'll draw my weapon and roll initiative. Whereas if he gives some kind of...
He invites them to sit down on his fire and have a stew. It's a different context.
True, but I was going to say, if the inevitable is combat, if he goes into that typical monologuing, or he's in a situation where they can't immediately rush him and a conversation starts, that's going to guide the players into the style of the game that you're looking to run. When things are happening, be descriptive. describe the actions that are happening, the scenery that's around, so the players know, oh, well, this is what is expected. And we've talked about this in another angle, and that's agency. If you give the players agency in your game, obviously everything needs to be controlled if you have power hungry people. But as you describe things that are going on, when you give them agency, the players should be describing that kind of stuff as well. So that'll get them out of their shell. And when you put that ball in their court with agency, it's all about role playing. It's all about conversation. And if they're like, oh, well, we turn the corner and orcs jump out and attack us, well, that's going to show that player is looking for that and not looking for the cool role playing scene.
Well, I think when you start mixing up combat with the role playing, if you're really trying to get your players to role play more, and you want to engage players that are more interested in RP, then I think leaving out the combat altogether is better. I think they're going to want puzzles and problems to solve, and they're going to want social interaction. They're going to want to have to negotiate and use diplomacy, and not as skills, but as role playing scenarios.
Right.
Not about chucking the dice, but about actually talking their way through these and navigating social situations through the role playing at the table. I think anytime you start mixing combat and role playing, especially if your players are the other kind of role play and you're trying to get more role playing, it can really murky the waters and make it a little more confusing.
Okay.
But if you give them situations where it really is about solving problems and conflict through nonviolent resolutions, then it only leaves the other avenues of exploration and social interaction.
Right. That's a good point.
I mean, you can do that, but I can definitely see where it gets confusing. And if you do too much, here's what happens: role play, combat, role play, combat, role play, combat. Finally, players are like, well, we're just going to fight anyway. Why should we bother talking? Like, it's really like a waste of our time. I could just stab the guy while he's monologuing and be done with it,
That's true.
Or, for you guys that saw the Deadpool movie at the end, you know what I mean. But, so it's not wrong, but I think, you have to mix it up in a way that sends clear signals. And also, too, some of those situations that are going to be combat, you have to let them not be combat, or there's no point to the role playing before the combat.
Right. So
it can't be a foregone conclusion.
That's true.
Yeah, that's how I would handle it. And also as far as what do you want as a player for role playing? Well, that question is tough because all the players really should want something different based on their characters, their concepts, their ideals, their bonds, their flaws. If you're talking about 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Or just characteristics that they've come up with and their backstory and things like that. You're gonna, they're gonna each want something different. I would think anyway.
Right. Typically,
from the role playing scenarios,
every well-established character is going to have goals, things that they want to accomplish either in the short term or the long term, and beyond that, the players are going to have those as well, and sometimes they're actually in conflict with the character.
Yeah, with each other. So anytime you can come up with role playing scenarios that are going to target those things, that's when you're really going to speak to your players, because it's personal. The best role playing for the players at your table are going to be anytime you can make it personal. Now, you can do that without even involving aspects of their character. Mm-hmm. You can draw them in. You can make them care about what's going on, about the NPCs, about the outcome, and then crush them. No, that's how you're gonna create rewarding role playing scenarios for your players. What is the aha moment at the end? What is the reward going to be for going through all the role playing? And it doesn't have to be XP or magic items or gold. It can literally be just the outcome, or building a relationship with an NPC, or even two players, establishing more of relationship with each other, because again, because it is a tabletop RPG, the role playing doesn't have to be just between the DM and the players. They can role play with each other as well. So it's those are going to be the most rewarding, I think, for as a player. That's my opinion anyway.
I think that that covers it. What do you guys out there think? Do you have any tips or tricks for Isaac? How do you weigh in on these questions? Put your thoughts and comments down below. While you're at it, like, share, even subscribe.
And hang out with us over on Nerdarchy.com.
So until next time, stay nerdy. What he can get and train them to be the kind of game he wants to run.
So that's kind of a loaded question, because there's a lot of varying factors here. It's like, well, where does he live? What does he have around him? How many options does he have?
He's curious to know, does he seek out like-minded individuals to start a game, or does he seek out whoever he can get and train them to be in the role-playing style? And as players, what do we look for as role-playing cues, and what interests us as far as role-playing?
Down in the description below, you can find Nerdarchy, the newsletter, where you get weekly games.
Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Ted, hanging out with
Nerdarchy Dave.
And today we have a viewer suggestion from Isaac. He's a fledgling DM for 5th edition, and he wants to have his players be more role players as opposed to role players.
Gaming tips from us, as well as learn how to game with the Nerdarchy.
So, what as far as the first question, does he take the more challenging road and seek out the people who are going to be more inclined to do the role playing, or does he grab